Scott's going to take us by John Hamm's house.
Oh, there's a couple of houses on this location. There's I'll show you a movie location too up here. You might even know it already. But, so this house with the wall in front of it is John Hamm's house. This one on our left right here. And then in the movie Mulholland, the one Mulholland Drive or Mulholland Falls, the one with Nick Nolte and Melanie Griffith was
Mulholland Falls.
And these two houses were used in that. So I think that one was his and this one was Melanie Griffith's.
So now we're making a turn on DeLongpre Avenue. And this was the street and the apartment that literary genius, I guess you would say, Charles Bukowski wrote his writings in. Post office primarily was the main one. So right here, he actually worked at the post office, and kind of one of the big deals about Bukowski is he had this very front apartment. In fact, there's a documentary where he comes walking right up here with a guy, and they walk right up to the windows while people live there, and he says that the furthest window behind the truck was his kitchen, and then the living room was the middle one, and he used to sit out on the front steps and smoke and drink, and he said that he was the lowlife. He was the American lowlife, and he wrote about being a lowlife. His dad used to beat him with a razor strop, what they sharpen razors with, 3 times a week. He said just to teach him lessons, you know, not anything in particular, just to teach him what pain was. So Bukowski started drinking when he was a kid. He had bad acne. He had a German accent, so he just really ended up hating most of life and most of the people that he encountered, and he wrote about being that miserable person. He worked at the post office downtown sorting mail, and when he wasn't working, he would write short stories in there and eventually turned it into his career. He got himself published in little literary magazines because he was on the government's watch list for one of his books. So he ended up having to publish everything kind of underground so that he wouldn't get into trouble, but he ended up publishing like 60 books in his lifetime. So he loved this Shakey's Pizza that's right here on the corner because he said that was the place he could get an early drink in the day.
Shaky, I love it.
Yeah, Shakey's Pizza, you gotta love it. So yeah, you can find documentaries of him actually walking in there and saying this was one of his favorite places when he lived here. He lived at that apartment in 1969 for like 10 years. He basically let various people take him on, or he would give them tours of his stomping grounds while he was still alive before he moved to San Pedro. So you can find a lot of that stuff on your own on YouTube. It's kind of cool.
You probably do it for 20, 50 bucks, you know.
Oh yeah, he just, you know, he said, in fact, he said that all of his writing came from drinking, from red wine. He said from the first time he ever had a drink, he knew that was the solution to his life, and said that he realized early on that if you drank whiskey, you were useless after like an hour, hour and a half, but if you drank wine, you could keep going all day. Let that be a lesson to you. So now our next stop is the final apartment of Mila Nurmi. I believe that's how you pronounce her name, Vampira. I'll let Scott go into a little bit of the details as to how they found her and everything if he wants to, but I think most people know her. She basically got her start from attending a costume ball and dressing up as Morticia Addams from the comic strips, and someone there saw her and liked her, and she ended up getting her own television show and everything. The third one
on the left was hers here on this little courtyard building. And yeah, she passed away. They found her a few days after she died in that. But yeah, she was cast as Vampira to host a TV program called Vampira Presents, hosting movies. And yes, based on the Charles Addams character Morticia. And there was a lawsuit for a few years against Elvira, because Vampira claimed that Elvira stole her act. But as Elvira said, you know, they asked me to wear something sexy and black. You don't have a lot of choices. So, and actually Vampira never even showed up to the court case. So that's kind of fizzled out.
Now where this building is on the right, this is actually where Charles Bukowski moved into right after the apartment we just saw. And when this building was here, you could find a picture of him standing out in front with a baseball bat. like he was going to swing a baseball bat. And they show in a documentary he's walking down here and then makes a left down this street.
In all the Ed Wood movies were filmed, Ed Wood, who made Plan 9 from Outer Space, etc., were actually filmed in an alley just beyond Gold Diggers on our left. You see a very narrow passageway between that green building and the one next door to it. And at the end of that alley is the sound stage that they made all those really cheesy movies in. And as I understand it, Tim Burton went back there and filmed actually those scenes in that actual sound stage. But Ed Wood used to drink in Gold Diggers, which is now a trendy dance bar. It used to be pretty scuzzy. And then there is there's a scene where he and Glenn or Glenda walks out from between those two buildings and walks. You can see these buildings quite clearly in the film. And then he walked across the street and was looking in storefronts that were here that are gone now. And I don't know if you guys remember, a couple of years ago there was that Ronnie Chasen was her name, was a Hollywood publicist who was murdered at the corner of Whittier and Sunset in Beverly Hills. She was shot at an intersection and she crashed into a light post a couple of blocks away. And the Beverly Hills police, when it first happened, were saying that an expert marksman had assassinated her. She was very wealthy, very powerful, and had a lot of enemies. But it turned out where a homeless guy on a bicycle did it. And his name was Harold Smith. They did an article about it on one of those America's Most Wanted TV shows. He bragged to a roommate, because that's sort of like a low-income, sort of single-room occupancy place, the Harvey Apartments. Very, very cheap, rooms by the week. And as the detectives approached Harold Smith to question him, he pulled out a gun and shot himself in the head in the lobby, just inside the door. See, down the middle of these buildings is where the sound stage is that they filmed in. And inside these doors, this white set of doors, is where Harold Smith blew his brains out, just inside.
On the left here is Paramount. This is the big blue whale. That's the Star Trek, where Star Trek was filmed. And that street is Gene Roddenberry. You can see Leonard Nimoy and Gene Roddenberry. They have like two different streets in there. Stage 29. And I believe that's where Dr. Phil now films his stuff in.
Actually, I just shot...
Or Doctors or something, right?
I just shot the Doctors in there the other day.
Yeah, so Scott can confirm that for us.
But next door to it is 30 is Dr. Phil's.
Yeah, and I think Dr. Phil produces the Doctors or whatever.
He does.
So
his son actually does it.
This whole chunk right over here used to be part of Desilu.
Yeah, it was.
And then, you know, I've shown it a million times with that picture of Lucy and Desi coming out of this Paramount entrance here. It was a little different.
There were stairs, yeah.
Yeah, there were stairs, but you can definitely see them right there. And then the Happy Days stage, if I remember right when I was here, was this one right up here to the left on the other side of these gates. I did some, I don't know, like some Nickelodeon show or something there one day. And there's the RKO Globe right up there from when this used to be RKO.
DiCaprio gets picked up when he's leaving work by Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt pulls up just here because the sign on the set, instead of said Paramount Picture Studio Tour, it said Columbia Pictures. And Brad Pitt pulls up right where that fire plug is, and DiCaprio comes out and they take off in that direction.
And there's the I Love Lucy Square sign right above.
Yeah, right above the intersection.
And here are the gates of Paramount.
So these are the new Paramount gates, but the next one, the Bronson gates, are the famous ones, and now they're a city block in the complex because they bought the entire city block in front of it and knocked it down. But look one block in on the left and you'll see the original Paramount gates. Oh, they put the Christmas tree up blocking it.
Yeah, Merry Christmas everyone. And then on the right is Raleigh Studios. You said that's the oldest studio in Hollywood?
Oldest running studio in America.
Oh, in America?
Yeah.
There you go.
They used to make Wagon Train here. I took around some kids that grew up in this neighborhood. They say they used to climb up and look over the fence and watch them filming in here. But the oldest section is still a wooden structure too, which just means it's a matter of time before it goes up in flames, because they always do. This is the oldest part here on our right, and alongside of it. And haunted.
That's all part of that studio.
There's a great picture online I found of all these people auditioning. They're bringing their cats in to audition, and there's this line of all these women with about 25 cats just down the side of this building.
Now we'll go up El Centro and we'll show you the Circle Theater and Hollygrove Orphanage, or the former Hollygrove Orphanage. Now on the left is the orphanage, but on the right used to be a grocery store a long time ago that they converted into a theater, and that's where Shelley Winters and her brother-in-law managed that theater. So when Shelley and Marilyn used to come see different things that were here, that was when Marilyn made the comment of, I grew up right across the street, that's the orphanage. And then when I went there and vlogged it, you can actually see they have a big picture of Marilyn right there, the Norma Jean Gala. When I came here, they were nice enough to let me go into where her bedroom was. So her bedroom was the far left one. It's now an office, but from that room, when you went out on the balcony, you absolutely, as Scott has mentioned, you can even see the Hollygrove sign right here in front. When she would look out there, she could see up this alley and see the water tower for Paramount Studios right there, where her mom was a film cutter. Scott, do you want to add anything?
Nope. Actually,
yeah, that's right. It was RKO at the time.
The friend of mine worked on the lot and said that she was a secretary at Paramount, and said that Harpo Marx dared her $10 to drive on her lunch hour, climb up the water tower to the top. She did it for $10.
So here we have the famous drum shop, Stein on Vine. That's where the Wrecking Crew that recorded for Phil Spector and Brian Wilson, all those guys, all those hits, that's where they used to buy their stuff. That's where Karen Carpenter took lessons and bought her stuff. So there's a really deep history here. You can see even in the window, it's still that professional drum shop, and you've got people like Gene Krupa in the window, and that's very legendary. And then right directly in front of us is Red Studios, where I Love Lucy, the Andy Griffith Show. I mean, it's been different studios since, but this is now, it's now Red Studios. Even the Golden Girls was filmed there.
You can see there's one of those lamps just above the doorway right there. And there's a great picture of the audience lining up to see I Love Lucy being filmed. They burst that bracket's still there too. It did say the I Love Lucy soundstage, a sign hanging from that bracket right there. I thought that bracket was long gone, but it's kind of cool. Anyway, they one of these lights was literally falling down and about to well, it fell down on the ground. That's how I got it. It was that one right there on the left above that second door. And then you do see the audience lining up to see I Love Lucy, and that light shows up in it. But the episodes where Lucy and Ricky went to Hollywood with Fred and Ethel, and they were in their hotel room, and they show the view of Hollywood and the Hollywood sign. That photograph was a still photograph taken from the roof of this building in that direction. So if you were up at the top, you'd see that exact same landscape.
And since the Andy Griffith Show also recorded there, right here was where the former location of Thelma Lou's house was. And then coming up here to the left is Buster Keaton Comedies, where Buster Keaton finally got his own studio to do whatever he wanted, however he wanted, and they memorialized it years later with a plaque on the wrong side of the street. So the old plaque is actually right here. Where? Right here by the so here you can see the old plaque, that square. So we decided to hop out for this one. This is the old, this is the original plaque in the wrong spot that they put down for Buster Keaton. And then if you look right across here, this is where the real one, this is where the place actually was. This is where Buster Keaton Comedies actually was. So about a year ago, they painted this mural here, and they put two plaques down. And you can actually see they, even though it's got a little damage, that's a famous photo that was taken right out front of Buster Keaton Comedies the day that it opened. So now we're heading down Santa Monica Boulevard, and we're heading to what's now called Hollywood Center Studios.
I think they changed the name again.
Again?
It's Hollywood, no wait, it's Las Palmas Studios now.
So here we go, like we were saying, this used to be Hollywood Center Studios, but now it's Sunset Las Palmas Studios. I knew it from when I would come in here and have to make drop-offs or do any kind of work or anything. The Lone Ranger, Marx Brothers filmed things here. The first 2 seasons of I Love Lucy were here. I know a lot of Comedy Central stuff is done here now, but Scott has some pretty cool stories about the Beverly Hillbillies and other things. Scott, do you want to say what you know about here?
Well, sure. I mean, it was the Beverly Hillbillies were shot here, and then ultimately Petticoat Junction and Green Acres, those three produced by Paul Henning. But they there's a couple of great scenes when I don't know if you remember, Jed Clampett bought a movie studio, and Jethro he put in some movies, and there's a great scene with Jethro as a cowboy with a covered wagon with a monkey beside him coming down this road and pulling straight into the studio here on our left. But and it's haunted too. They went to the I Love Lucy soundstage and found some ghosts in there. So they moved from here after 2 years over to where we were before, where I showed you that gray building with the lights on the walls. That's where they filmed the rest of I Love Lucy.
Howard Hughes' old office.
He hung out with his, in his movie theater, surrounded by jars of urine. But this was used in The Aviator, Leonardo DiCaprio playing that paranoid, old, decrepit Howard Hughes. Those scenes were shot here. But it's a beautiful Art Deco building that's amazingly still intact.
So now coming up on our left, where this gray gate is, that was the Guns N' Roses Hell House. There's a famous photo of them sitting on the front porch, and those windows that you see, the crisscross windows, are still the same ones.
Out signs, no hippies, no long hairs allowed. Since the Whiskey A Go-Go and those clubs are straight in front of us about a half mile, it wouldn't be unusual to see John Lennon or Bob Dylan here having breakfast after the clubs closed. And it was just a hip kind of music-y place where people hung out. And in '65, when they were casting the Monkees, the ad in the trade paper said that they were looking for spirited Ben Franks types. But the band Buffalo Springfield met for the first time and formed really in this parking lot, as did Love, Arthur Lee's band. They met for the first time in the parking lot of Ben Frank's.
And now they're advertising an Arnold Schwarzenegger health menu.
To come back if you got famous. If you got big, you had to come back to the Troubadour. And if you saw Rocket Man, they demonstrated that scene where Elton John was playing and he bombed and he bombed and he bombed, and then one night he did it, and there was a Rolling Stone writer in the audience who wrote the review, and that's what kicked Elton John's career off, was his performance at the Troubadour. That's a great part of the film Rocket Man when they show him. That's when he's floating around and playing the piano. Everything worked out perfectly.
And also, when Guns N' Roses first got started and they were becoming a bigger band, they were really bad with money, so Vicki Hamilton told me that she got the Troubadour to pay their rent if they would do 2 shows a month. So that's how they were able to pay their rent for a while. Well, my friends, I hope you enjoyed that tour. We tried to change it up a little bit for the people that attended. I've made, I don't know how many of these touring around Hollywood videos with Dearly Departed, probably 5 of them. So this time I want to do a little bit of a different section of Hollywood, and I hope you enjoyed it. Big, gigantic thank you to all the people that came out. I was blown away, Usually, we have somebody maybe from like Texas or something fly out, and that's totally cool. I'm so amazed that anybody would, fly anywhere to come meet me. But this time we had somebody who missed me at the London meetup last year and flew all the way here for this meetup. We also had someone fly from North Carolina. We had people fly in from Utah. I was flabbergasted by how many people cared enough to come out and hang out with me today. So thank you everyone that attended. Thank you to Scott Michaels, Dearly Departed, everybody that came along on that tour, helped support his museum, and thank you to our co-host Ja. Hope everyone enjoyed this. We'll see you all tomorrow. Good night.